Welcome to level 4 of this video series that I'm making, where my quest is to try and make items that are a little bit more on the artistic side. Even though, again, I keep mentioning this, I don't consider myself an artist, but I do want to try and make items that look a little bit more artistic in nature. And by doing so, I'm hoping to learn some new techniques and using more of my creative side. And we'll see where this all leads up to at some point. But for now, I'm also going to change the titles instead of being levels, because originally I was saying, I'm starting with level 1 of technique, and I want to get to level whatever 10 or whatever it might come up to in the way of complexity and technique. I decided to go with calling it parts because today's video I'm actually reverting back to technique number 1. The reason being is because I'm doing a different image. So I've practiced 3 times already. I only have 2 of them here because the first one is gone. I'm reverting back to the original technique is because I want to make sure that this new image that I'm using will actually look good as a 20 by 20 inch size, or any size for that matter, in real life, and 2, that I can actually stain the colors appropriately as well, that it actually looks good, where I'm just essentially cutting it with the laser and staining it and covering with epoxy resin. So that's the reason why I'm changing to parts. So I won't hold you up anymore. Let's get this project started. As with the previous project, we have to create an image. I used Midjourney AI text to image AI this time. Then I brought it over to Canva to try to get it to black and white so that I can actually bring it to Lightburn and try to use the trace image. Didn't work very well, so I went back to Midjourney and used their editor to make a black and white image. Then it worked better in the Lightburn. I still had to do quite a bit of editing and tweaking and so forth, but to get it all cleaned up, was the end result. Again, I'll probably make a full-size video on how we edited these images to get what we wanted, because it will take a full video to do that. So hopefully you can get around to that and you'll stick around to see that at some point or another. So here we are. Of course, we had the image ready, cut it out in laser. As you probably saw earlier, I had a large piece of wood in there. I didn't feel like cutting it in table saw or anything like that, so I just used the laser. Nice thing with this laser has a pass through, so I can put a whole 8-foot plywood right through it if I really wanted to. So that's a nice thing with this one, and it works out well. So got it all cut out, and then now I'm starting the staining. I cut the backing, and we get to staining the black first, all the black parts. So that'll be the outline and the eyes as we go through this stage. With all the black stain completed, we now move on to the other pieces, and I use a mixture of different stains again that I have on hand to make the colors, to try and match them as best as possible from the original AI image that we had. And so for the outline, I'm just using 2 different browns just to sort of give a little bit of contrast, but not too much between the 2. And it kind of matches the black stain that I have as well. The black is not a full black. It's kind of an ebony, I guess. So it still has that bit of brownish tone to it, which works really well, I find, with the 2 tones of the 2 different browns that I've been using for the frame there. Next, I'm moving on to the white for the sort of, I guess it would be the sky background of this image. And I'm using white and a little bit of a light blue as well. And I'm kind of sort of not like just doing all blue and then covering it white. I'm doing streaks and so forth, different angles to try to give a different, sort of a stained glass look to it. So not sure if it comes out in the picture here. It's definitely no more noticeable, I think, in real life, but same for all the browns. I just using some brown, some white, just to get some contrast and whatnot in the colors. The claws, I didn't find they were standing out enough, so I'm just trying to make it a little bit more orange-brown type of color to it, just to give it a little bit more pop. And then we'll pop the eyes back in, and we'll be getting ready for gluing it up. And it's the next day and the stain is all nicely dried, so we're going to glue this up to the MDF backing. And I use mainly the B7000 glue as the main glue, and then I also use some CA glue, just some spots, just to give it a quick adhesion, because this thin sort of outline stuff tends to pop up here and there, so having the CA glue to hold it down in place until the B7000 cures works really well. Now that the outline is glued, it's time to put all the other pieces in, just like a puzzle, and we'll do one by one as we go along here. And some I use B7000, the CA glue some places, as well as maybe more of a, I guess, a thicker glue for the big pieces. And we'll get through all this right now. And I think it's next day, or it was an evening, and we're now ready to do some epoxy resin. So this time I'm laying down some parchment paper as the base, just so that if it leaks over, it won't stick to the desk too much. And I went ahead and bought this resin tape. I've seen other people use this. Finally started doing some research. I tend not to try to do too much research, because I don't want to get too, how should I say, influenced by other people's creativity and methods and so forth. Because sometimes I find just by trying and error, I find different ways of doing stuff that makes things look a bit different than most people. Not always, but I find I don't like to look at too much stuff. So unfortunately, it wouldn't stick to the edge very well. So I had to use some wood here, which I just pin nailed to the MDF table top that I use there. And it's time to mix up the epoxy resin, and then we'll pour that, and of course it'll take a couple of coats to get this all done. Now, this is the stage of the epoxy resin pour that I end up usually making a mistake. I usually get impatient and I see like it's nice and thin, it's soaking into the cracks and the crevices and everything like that. And you can tell that it's getting dry in some places because of that, because it's going underneath. And I really should just leave it like that and just making sure there's no air bubbles and let it all soak within and underneath, and then come back a few hours later to pour the second one. But I get impatient and I figure, oh, I'm just going to fill it right in, get it all done in one shot, and then I don't have to do it again. Problem with that is that there's always air bubbles that somehow seep out from underneath, leaving me with a whole bunch of bubbles in the end product. Another issue that I've been having was that with the cooler weather, the heating fans are coming on and it's kicking up dust and hairs and so forth, and that's been falling in the epoxy, so I had to pick those out a few times during the evening, and it had left some little irregularities in the top coat, but it's okay. But I'm okay with it. It's going to be our picture, and it kind of looks like old-fashioned glass with the different irregular wavy form on the top of the epoxy anyway, so I'm okay with that. Myself, it's just the bubbles I don't like. Here we go. Try to get the reflections off here. Okay, so I mentioned through the video some of the issues I've had, and most of the issues that I encountered were with the resin epoxy near the end. So that is one of the roadblocks that I'm having, and it's part user error in my account, of course, because I'm a little bit impatient. I try to get more on than I really should at first, and instead of doing a seal coat and then getting all the bubbles out and then doing the flood coat, I tend to try and say, oh, I can do it in one step, and of course it never happens. It never works in one stage, and I end up paying the price for that. So that's one part. The other part is I really need to clean up my shop, and then the other issues with the heater coming on again is it's blowing dust around and hair, dog hair and things like that, because there's dog hair on the floor, and it ends up falling on the epoxy, and then as it's curing I'm pulling it out, but it ends up leaving little bubbles or little indentations and that. So obviously I don't feel comfortable selling this. We're keeping this one for ourselves. We have a lot of these art pieces in our house. We're keeping it for ourselves, and but I do want to try and look at, either I have to, like I said, clean up the shop, make sure there's a clean area, and do the epoxy then only. Or I just have to increase my ability to be patient and doing just a seal coat first and then flooding it once the seal coat is ready to be covered. So that's one thing. The other option is to just eliminate using epoxy resin altogether, and I might try that in my next project, just so, again, to save some time, because the epoxy, as I mentioned, I think it was level 2, it does take time. Getting things prepared, pouring the first one, pouring the second, and it does take a time, because then also you're not able to do much else in the shop because it has to obviously cure and not kick up any dust or hair that will fall into it. So those are a couple of things that I might change in the next one. I'll try anyways and see what the outcome will look like. So that's the end of this video. We do hope to see you here again. You know what to do. Subscribe. For some people, I actually just found out, a family member asked if it costs money to subscribe to a YouTube channel. No, it does not cost you money to subscribe to a YouTube channel, so feel free to hit that subscribe button. And you can hit that notification bell, so whenever I do put out a new video, you'll get notified. As well as if you hit the like button, again, it doesn't cost you anything, and it just helps us, helps the YouTube know that people do like our content, and it'll hopefully get shown to more people. Love you. Take care.